Peter Credlin, live from News24.
Good evening. Welcome to the show now. Of course, we are News24. How about that? A new opener, new backdrop. I'll show you that in a moment. And a new network brand. But what we do is not changing here at all. Here's what's coming up tonight on Credlin. A massive day today in Victorian politics. Jacinta Allen's leadership looking terminal. But it appears she wants a bloody battle and is digging in. Plenty to get you across tonight, plus a bad news poll for her this afternoon. We'll also speak with Liberal leader Jess Wilson. Does it matter who she faces in November? The federal court rejecting Pauline Hanson's appeal, upholding that she racially vilified Green Senator Mehreen Faruqi. So could Hanson take this now to the High Court? Her Chief of Staff, James Ashby, will join me. Plus, plenty to look at from the ALP conference, the wash-up over the weekend. Stage managed, yes, but on foreign affairs, the debate was shut down. What's worse, Labor refusing to agree that Hamas should disarm. And the PM's train wreck interview, evasive when questions were raised about his high rollers dinner last week in Sydney.
I attend lots of dinners in lots of places, and I don't talk about private dinners. I've held a number this week.
But first, there's a saying in politics, in any race, back the horse, self-interest. And that's never been truer than tonight inside Victorian Labor, as moves to oust Premier Jacinta Allen come to a head, with yet more polling showing that Labor's in catastrophic trouble. And when it all gets boiled down, an MP fearing they'll lose their seat will always look to dump the leader rather than admit they bear any responsibility for their party's poor performance. This afternoon's special news poll lays bare Labor's dilemma. A primary vote of just 28%, meaning that on a two-party preferred basis, the coalition's in front of Labor 52-48. As to who voters want as their premier, Liberal leader Jess Wilson's way ahead of Allen. 51% of those Victorians polled, so that's a majority of voters, want her over Jacinta Allen. And Allen's well behind on 32%. And here's the shocker. That makes Jacinta Allen the most unpopular premier in news poll history. So forget all that claptrap from the left about gender and quotas. Labor's talk's cheap. It's not her chromosomes that are killing Jacinta Allen, but her baggage as Dan Andrews' deputy and her gross mismanagement of the big build, so mired in allegations of union and organised crime corruption. That's the problem. Now, let me remind you of something most in the media forget. Allen was never elected premier. At the last election, Dan Andrews was. That's right, many have forgotten this. Despite world record lockdowns at the last state election in 2022, the Liberals under two-time leader Matthew Guy, well, they actually went backwards. And so Dan Andrews survived, only to resign a year later, grabbing his big pension before heading off to make his money via his mates in Beijing. And on the way out, of course, he installed his mate, fellow left faction loyalist, Jacinta Allen. So installed, not elected. And just like the unelected Joan Kirner, before her, well, Allen will make history for all the wrong reasons. Although, yes, unelected by the people, like Jacinta Allen, at least Kirner faced voters at an election. So please spare me the constant BS about women from the left. In the end, it's competence, performance and merit that matters more than anything else, and it's the lack of all three that's been the problem for Allen from day one. Although, good luck to Ben Carroll in explaining this about face to his daughter after using her as some sort of human shield in recent weeks when asked if he still supported Jacinta Allen.
I want to serve Jacinta Allen, and I want to make sure. No, look. That's why people. I've got a young daughter at home, and I couldn't be more proud to make sure she grows up knowing that I supported Jacinta Allen to be a world-class premier and get re-elected in her own right.
Are you going to try and get the premier's job tomorrow?
No.
Are you going to ask her to step aside?
No.
Can you look her in the eye and say that?
I can look you in the eye and say that, Premier.
It's only been 6 weeks. It hasn't aged well, has it? Now, what's clear tonight is that Allen has lost majority support amongst her Labor colleagues. Added to which is this exclusive tonight on the Age website that reads, a secret briefing to Premier Jacinta Allen reveals her most senior advisors sought to warn her in writing in June 2023 that the big build she was overseeing as minister was being taken over by a lawless CFMEU and that this could cause major blowouts, and bikers and criminals had reportedly infiltrated taxpayer-funded projects. So if that's right, Allen knew. 15 billion's now been wasted and she was warned. So she's gone. She's gone. The real issue now is how bloody does she want this all to become? Does she resign and hand over cleanly tomorrow to Ben Carroll? That's clearly what the factions were hoping for last night. Or, as she made plain in a letter today to head office, does she continue to stay and fight? And if she does, well, what does that look like? Dragging it out over the next 4 weeks, running internal hatreds through the media, to end up with what we know is already a foregone conclusion, Allen out, Carroll in. Is that what will happen? Or will party elders get to her and urge some common sense? With just 4 months now between today and the November state election, at what point does Allen's determination to fight for her job become self-indulgent? At what point does her act of defiance against the numbers make her, politically speaking, a suicide bomber for Labor's opponents? That's what she needs to weigh up this evening. Now, when faced with a similar decision, Julia Gillard, who stole Kevin Rudd's job midway through his first term, well, she fought on. Now, it didn't help her, as we know. The caucus went ahead and rolled Labor's first female leader, the first female Prime Minister anyway. They reinstalled Rudd just months out from the 2013 election. And the same will happen here. Remember what I said earlier? Remember that horse called self-interest? Well, just like in 2013, I don't think changing the leader will make a scrap of difference to the result in November. But with these important caveats. If the Labor leadership does change, the Liberals have got to hold their nerve. Now, I can't tell you the number of times we had Liberals in opposition, people like the then Deputy Julie Bishop, completely obsessed about how we were going to handle the prospect that Labor might dump Gillard and put Rudd back in before polling day. Now, honestly, Bishop was almost paralysed with the thought that we would lose Gillard, who at the time, just like Jacinta Allen, was a big vote winner for the coalition. And every time she and others raised it, Tony Abbott would say this to them. He'd say, look, we've got no control over who we face at the election. We only have control over what we say and the policies we take to the Australian people. And the moment we become so obsessed about our opponent that we lose sight of that, then we're gone. Now, Abbott was spot on. He stuck to his strategy and he won in a landslide, even with Kevin Rudd's return. So that's my message tonight to Liberals. Not one of you has a vote in the Labor caucus. None of you can influence what Labor will do. The only thing you can control now is how you react to it. And in that respect, this is where you must stick to your strategy. In the end, it doesn't matter who captains a Labor ship, that ship's sinking. And it's your job to ensure that the ship ends up at the bottom of Port Phillip Bay. The real risk for Liberals is that media attention on the internal machinations of Labor take away airtime that they want focused on the solutions they have to fix the broken state of Victoria. So as distracting as all of this might be, and there's a real risk that some Liberal frontbenchers will see the mess inside Labor as a bit of an excuse to get lazy in terms of their own work ethic over the next few months, what's happening right now with the Labor leadership should in fact spur them on to go even harder. Because I come from the school of politics where if you've got your foot on the throat of your opponent, you keep it there. You keep your foot on their neck until the bitter end. So as the phones run hot in Victorian Labor tonight, watch this space. Plenty of headlines. We'll go there now to Canberra and get them. Political reporter Ruben Spargo.
Good evening. Pauline Hanson has lost her appeal against a court ruling which found she racially discriminated against a Greens senator. The One Nation leader told Greens Deputy Leader Marine Faruqi to go back to where she came from.
This case today is our fight back against the far right.
Senator Hanson is flagging a potential High Court appeal. The Prime Minister is evading questions about a secretive Sydney dinner. Anthony Albanese seemingly confirmed he attended the family mansion of Felix Lee, who the Nine Papers report was offering a substantial donation to the Labor Party. Mr Lee's father faces allegations of deceiving the ATO to funnel money from China into Australia.
Oh, look, I attend lots of functions.
What about this one?
I attend lots of functions in lots of places.
What about this dinner at Point Piper?
I attend lots of functions in lots of places. Why don't you want to answer that?
One Nation leader Pauline Hanson claims if Labor didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any. A Liberal MP is likening the ALP's national conference with something out of North Korea. Unions, rank-and-file members, MPs and factional power brokers gathered in Adelaide.
It's a political conference that would have done Kim Jong-un proud. Clearly no one was allowed to dissent at all, and we know that's the modus operandi.
He's not a dictator, is he?
The Prime Minister claims it was the most transparent political conference in Australia, and Labor is unified.
All right, before I bring in my panel and other things, I want to go back to that massive day today in Victorian politics. It'll be a long night tonight for the Labor MPs, the factional bosses, of course, hitting the phones. Joining me now for the latest, our Victorian political reporter in the hot seat, Georgie Dickinson. Well, News24, we haven't even been going 24 hours yet, Georgie, but we were first with the news. We've run it hard all day. The speculation's been there for weeks. Of course it is. But I tell you what, when it started to move early this morning, it moved fast, didn't it?
It certainly picked up pace very quickly. Good evening to you, Peter. It was before a cabinet meeting that was scheduled to start at 11 o'clock that members of the Premier's ministry had visited her, including the Police Minister, as well as her Infrastructure Minister, Gabrielle Williams. At this meeting, before the cabinet meeting had even started, they had asked the Premier to resign, to step aside and make way for the Deputy Premier, Ben Carroll. She clearly refused to do so. She in turn actually asked those ministers visiting her to resign themselves, which clearly they weren't going to do. Now, of course, as you played earlier, that snippet from the Deputy Premier, Ben Carroll, just 6 weeks ago saying that he wasn't coming for the top job. Today, a completely different story. He released this statement online and he had said that it is clear that the Premier had lost the majority of her caucus, and he had said in that statement that he'd gone to the Premier to inform her that he would be nominating for the leadership of the Labor Party. So certainly an extremely different tune to 6 weeks ago. And of course, we've seen the Premier saying that she will contest the leadership if it comes to that. But of course, Peter, that'll all happen at that party room meeting at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
OK, Parliament is sitting. If she's adamant that she won't go, take us through what happens then, Georgie.
Well, clearly they have the numbers for a successful leadership spill. So there's a few different scenarios that can play out. So that is the most likely, that there will be a successful leadership spill. Then Ben Carroll will likely nominate for the leadership. But of course, then the real question is if Jacinta Allen will stand by her word and that statement that she'd sent to the State Secretary that she would contest the leadership. If that is the case, that is really turmoil for the Labor Party. Then it could be a 2-month-long process. Of course, we're only just over 4 months out from the state election. So the focus really needs to remain on the election ahead. So that will be the real sticking point, whether she stands by her word tomorrow morning, and that will all be decided at 10 o'clock when the party room meets.
Now, this is a question without notice, Georgie. You might need to take it away and find out for me. But what a caucus room decides is the rules for a leadership ballot. They can also change, just like the Liberal Party can. So when they decided, when they moved away from a caucus-only elected leader and moved into a scenario where it's a mixture of caucus and rank and file, well, there's nothing to stop the caucus tomorrow moving a motion to rescind that and have it just a decision only of the caucus. Do you know if that's on the table?
We haven't heard about that yet, Peter. I suppose the real message that the Labor Party tonight would be wanting to have is that they don't even have to get to that stage. They want, obviously, Jacinta Allen to resign before it gets to that stage and gets even messier than the situation currently already is.
Yeah, someone's got to knock on the door and say, love, it's not about you. It's no longer about you. You have to go. It's about the party. But we'll see what happens overnight. Thank you, Georgie. Go and rest up. You'll be busy again tomorrow, I suspect. Let's bring in my panel now. News24 host Jamie Rogers and National Affairs editor at the Daily Telegraph, also part of the stable of News24 too, James Morrow. Let's start with the Victorian leadership. I have to play these comments from just 6 weeks ago again by the aspirant Ben Carroll.
I want to serve Jacinta Allen, and I want to make sure. No, look. That's why people. I've got a young daughter at home, and I couldn't be more proud to make sure she grows up knowing that I supported Jacinta Allen to be a world-class premier and get re-elected in her own right.
Are you going to try and get the premier's job tomorrow?
No.
Are you going to ask her to step aside?
No.
Can you look her in the eye and say that?
I can look you in the eye and say that, Premier.
Jamie, for all their talk about women, I tell you, Labor have already got a gold medal for the way they roll their female leaders. So let's not take any advice from Labor when it comes to women in politics. But what's interesting here, how does Ben Carroll explain that one away, not just to his daughter, but to Victorians?
That's a very good point, Peter, because that interview certainly hasn't aged well, and it's going to be perfect material for the Liberals to be rolling out constantly if he is elected as the next Labor leader and Premier of the Victorian state leading into the election in November, because it shows that he looked Jacinta Allen in the eye and said that he wasn't going to contest the leadership, and then 6 weeks later, here we are. But he also used his daughter almost as a little bit of a political win there to say, I want to be able to tell her that I backed Jacinta Allen, and now he's contesting the leadership. But it's going to be interesting, the response to Ben Carroll, though, Peter, because he has stood side by side with Jacinta Allen as the crime has been escalating, as the debt has been continuing to grow. So he effectively is still tarnished by the same brush as what Jacinta Allen has been. It's going to be very interesting to watch, and I am amazed that Jacinta Allen is holding on. She's certainly not doing what's best for her party, but I really hope this is a big positive for the Liberals going into November.
I will give him points, though. I'll give him credit, Jamie, because after Daniel Andrews resigned and Allen was installed by the numbers that were orchestrated actually by Daniel Andrews as he walked out the door, Carroll was told not to run as deputy, but he sort of said, stuff you to Andrews and to the left faction, and he ran and was successful. So he's got a bit of spine, but I think like the Prime Minister, he's got a real Labor trust deficit now, doesn't he?
Well, he does. And to my point before, this is why the Liberals can really jump on this and continue to play that vision over and over again, where he looked Jacinta Allen in the eye and said he wasn't going to do that. If he had any form of political ambition, politicians are brilliant, Peter, at not being able to answer a question. So he should have been bouncing around and not done that, because this is the sort of stuff that doesn't age well and will come back to bite him. As I said, this is brilliant material for the Liberals to be using. Labor would be using it if it was the other way around. So the Liberals need to get out with their advertising campaign. It should be out as soon as he is announced as a leader. That ad needs to be rolling.
They put some stuff out today about deceit and Labor being focused on itself and not by voters, and I'll give them credit there too, James. And I made the point, and I hope Liberals are listening tonight. There was this whole internal kerfuffle in 2013 as we headed into that election. You know, what happens if they put Kevin Rudd back in? And, you know, Julia Gillard is our great gift in a polling sense. Without Gillard, geez, we're going to struggle to win. And Tony Abbott said to all the nervous Nellies, and chief among them, as I said, was Julie Bishop, don't lose focus, stick to the strategy, don't drop your bundle. And, of course, he did, the Libs did, and they won in a landslide. That's what's got to happen here.
Well, yeah, Peter, that is what has to happen here. And my information is that, in fact, the campaign has wargamed out the whole idea that this would happen, that there would be a change of leadership. I don't think they would have gone into this campaign necessarily expecting that Jacinta Allen was going to be the candidate that they wound up standing against at the end of November later this year. The message is still the same. And what we're seeing now, and what we're going to start to see tons of now for as long as this leadership fight goes on, and this is where the real advantage is for the coalition, is that, you know, this internal fight between the two, it's already getting so ugly. We've seen leaks in The Age this afternoon about how The Premier was told back in 2023 in a highly confidential briefing that the CFMEU was getting involved corruptly into all sorts of big build projects, and that, that there was a lot of concerns about money going out the door and corruption. And she's now saying, oh, I didn't know about that briefing. So, clearly already the knives are out. It's the longer this goes on, the more both parties in this get completely muddied. And obviously, the better it is for the Liberals.
Yeah, all credit there to The Age. They've got that story up. I'd had it rumoured to me from legal circles that there is the existence of these emails. It's written material about the warning, about corruption in the big build, but they've clearly stood it up to get it out there on the front pages this afternoon. The ALP conference, it wrapped up on the weekend, highly staged, managed, great big kumbaya. Everybody agreed on everything until it got to the issue of Israel and Palestine. But what I found, frankly, soul-destroying was this inability of Labor to demand that when they discuss Israel and Palestine, that Hamas must disarm and the Palestinian Authority must reform before any money goes into Gaza from Australian taxpayers. Well, we know, Jamie, Penny Wong is pouring the millions back into Gaza, and she's got all of those ministers and the Prime Minister over the weekend, all of them going to ground, refusing to answer any of the questions that we've all had about these 13 Australian men connected to ISIS in prison in Iraq that they have kept secret. I mean, they are treating voters like idiots here.
They absolutely are, Peter. The Dr. Jihad and the rumoured 13 other ISIS men over in Iraq. It is certainly concerning because the Labor government has a history here, as we saw with the ISIS brides and their children. And I know we don't like using the term brides, but that's what they've been in the headlines. But they came back, even though they kept telling Australians that, oh, we're not assisting them, but let's be real here. And I think to your comment before, Peter, when we look at the national conference and the wording around Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, the thing that I found really disappointing is when you are dealing with a terrorist organisation, you don't weaken the language around it. If anything, we should be strengthening it and not rewarding Hamas for horrific behaviour and atrocities of what they did on October 7. And what else that came out of that with Richard Marles, who himself had reportedly said to the right faction of the Labor Party that the language wasn't right here, but he said to his side, let's still just vote on it to ensure that we have unity. And I read that and I thought, there's the Labor Party that yet again, they're going to put unity amongst themselves ahead of Australians and what's best for the country. And that's this continuing behaviour and pattern that we see from this government where they put their own interests ahead of the rest of the nation.
Well, look, let's not forget too that Richard Marles, the so-called leader of the right, is the surrender monkey. He's the defence minister. And if that's his attitude, if he's more Chamberlain than Churchill, if he's into appeasement, he should resign that post to put someone in there who cares about holding a line and going to fight if necessary. James, not only ISIS are they trying to bury, of course. What about this exchange over that secret dinner last week between the PM and the son of a Chinese billionaire? We know that the father is facing allegations that he deceived the Australian Tax Office about his business affairs. The dad is a Philip Dongfang Li. Now, the PM, listen to the way he dodges scrutiny here with David Spears.
Did you attend a dinner at the home of Felix Lee in Point Piper?
Oh, look, I attend lots of functions.
What about this one?
I attend lots of functions in lots of places, including last night right here.
What about this dinner at Point Piper?
I attend lots of functions in lots of places. Why don't you want to answer that?
Deceptive, tricky. I mean, this is really becoming his political persona. At a minimum, mate, Labor's got to pay back every single dollar in the claimed $1 million donation they got from this dinner, surely.
Well, yeah, Peter. I mean, Albanese certainly loves a bit of hospitality, doesn't he? This is a really bizarre one because, yeah, okay, you're a politician. You go to a lot of dinners. You would know, Peter, there's a lot of rubber chicken functions and, different sort of gala banquets you got to go to. Most of those dinners are not coming with $1 million check attached that was been reportedly $1 million at the multi-tens of millions of dollars Point Piper mansion that, by the way, apparently the ATO has some sort of caveat over. I mean, beyond anything else, who's doing the advancing for the Prime Minister that this sort of thing is
100%.
allowed to occur? And then to be tricky about it, well, you know, we've all spoken about the hypocrisy around the way Labour carries on about, oh, Gina Reinhart gave a plane to Pauline Hanson. Well, you know, I'm sorry. That was all, you know, Pauline Hanson never said, well, I may have a plane, but I don't know where it came from, but, you know, I get lots of planes. You know, I mean, she came out and said it. Anthony Albanese there, he won't even say, confirm that he was at the dinner. The whole thing stinks. It looks really, really bad. And, you know, this is supposed to be the party of the people, the party of the working man. Peta, what a joke.
Your point about advancing spot on, you know, because Albanese has more people in his staff, on his staff, in his office than any Prime Minister in Australian history. And what not one of them could dig into the back room of this young bloke and wonder why a 25-year-old's got a multi-million-dollar mansion and wants to sling you $1 million. You'd be asking questions on that basis alone. Look, all of this makes me think he doesn't care about the next election because I think he'll be long gone. Fingers crossed I'm right, but we'll see. Thank you to you both. There you go. First night on News24 to a great panel like that. All right, we'll go to a break, but we'll come back because I want to look at this dire polling for Labor out of Newspoll this afternoon. Very bad for the Premier. Well, she might be the Premier only for 24 hours. We'll see. We'll get to that in a moment. Welcome back. Coming up, Victorian Opposition Leader Jess Wilson. Is she spooked by the thought of facing off against Ben Carroll and her new energy policy? Have we finally dumped fossil fuel objections inside the Victorian Liberals? But first, if it wasn't already bad enough for Jacinta Allen, new polling has dropped this afternoon in The Australian, showing just how untenable her position as leader is. Labor's primary votes now at a very low 28%. The Coalition well ahead on a primary of 31%. One Nation rounding out the pack on 19%. But it's worth remembering the Coalition's got a big margin to win government in its own right. It needs 16 seats, something like a 7 to 8% swing. But what's most damaging here for Allen is the fact that only 32% of voters favour her as Premier. Jess Wilson's got a massive 51%, so a statewide majority. And a whopping 71% of Victorian voters say that they are dissatisfied with Jacinta Allen. Now, that's a record in Newspoll terms, making Allen the most unpopular Premier in Australian political history. Joining me now to discuss all of this, Victorian political editor at The Australian, Anthony Galloway. Well, good news for us in a sense, Anthony. We rebrand here at News24, and the first night we're on air, we get confirmation that there will be a spill on the Victorian Premier. That's what we're heading for. We'll go through those numbers in a moment, but what's the latest you're hearing tonight?
Yeah, your first night on air is one of the craziest days I've seen in Australian politics, where you've got a wide cross-section of MPs and ministers. So you had two ministers from the left, Ingrid Stitt and Gabrielle Williams, and two ministers from the right, Colin Brooks and Anthony Carbines, go to Premier Jacinta Allen this morning and urge her to resign, informing her that she no longer has the support of the Labor caucus. Jacinta Allen refusing to resign and then sending a letter to the Labor Party's organisational wing saying prepare for a 6-week leadership campaign. You know, 4 months out from the election under Labor Party rules, if the leadership is contested, there has to be this campaign where both the membership and the caucus get the vote. Shortly after she did that, Ben Carroll, the Deputy Premier, informed her that he is challenging. So as it stands, we're heading to a caucus meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Where there will be a spill, but Jacinta Allen, as it stands tonight, is saying even if she loses that spill, which I understand she will overwhelmingly, she's going to contest the leadership again against Ben Carroll.
Yeah, I had a quick question to Georgie on this a little earlier. The rules at play about the Labor leadership in Victoria were determined by the caucus. So just like federally, I guess the caucus could move a motion and change their rules about how you change the leader. Surely they could do that tomorrow. You know, they could do an indicative show of hands, spill the leadership, and then take another vote, presumably, to say this will now be the one and only final decision given the proximity to the election. We will not go out to party rank and file. Is that possible?
It's absolutely possible, Peter, just as you mentioned, just as it is federally. So these rules are made by the caucus. They can be taken away by the caucus. I tend to think Jacinta Allen is, you know, a creature of the Labor Party, that this is all of an idle threat, and many people believe that is, that, you know, once a leader loses a spill, it's very rare that they contest the election. I mean, the only one I can think of in recent history was probably Malcolm Turnbull in 2009, I think it was, when he was opposition leader and actually contested it after he lost the spill.
I can't.
Yes. I can't actually think of another example where a leader recently has lost a spill and then goes on to contest a leadership ballot. So I think this is all of an idle threat. Senior figures in Victorian Labor Party tonight hope it is. They're urging Jacinta Allen that, hey, if you lose the spill, for the benefit of the party, to not derail the party less than 4 months out from the November election, you can't force this on, that you will not contest the leadership. Let's have a bloodless kind of, you know, handover of power to Ben Carroll, given he is the only challenger.
Now, one of the beauties of having the same mobile number I have for about 25 years is it's been well shared amongst the political types, and I got just as many little bits of information from Labor people as I did from Liberals today. And a lot of them are saying that we don't necessarily think that Ben Carroll can win the election, but he'll save the furniture. It'll be, he'll put us in a position where we're perhaps out for one term only, and then we're back in control, and we've learned the lessons of a pretty shocking 8 years under Andrews and, of course, Allen. You've seen the numbers in News Poll. What's your assessment?
I think today's News Poll was extraordinary in the sense of it showed that One Nation vote down on 19%, you know, Coalition on 31%, Labor on 28%. Unlike any other recent poll, it is showing a two-party contest between the major parties in Victoria. So perhaps, I mean, I'm a bit biased towards News Poll, but perhaps all the other polls had too much federal overlay, and that it is a different dynamic in Victoria. The poll is being used by Ben Carroll supporters and supporters of a change to argue, hey, there is this pathway to victory. It's Jacinta Allen that's been the drag on the vote. You know, 71% dissatisfied, as you mentioned. That's a record in News Poll history, which goes, you know, all the way back to Joh Bjelke-Petersen's dying days. So they're arguing there is a pathway but we need to change the leader. Jacinta Allen is the key block to that pathway.
All right, you're down at Parliament House. I'll let you go back to it. I know it's going to be a long night for you, as it is for everybody else. Thank you, Anthony Galloway. Anthony, of course, editor there at The Australian for Victorian Politics. After the break, this leadership turmoil with Labor. Well, what does it mean for the Liberals? Opposition leader Jess Wilson joins me next. Welcome back. Coming up, how Pauline Hanson responded to that loss in the federal court today to Greens Senator Maureen Faruqi. Now, this was not a defamation action. This related to provisions in the very contentious Racial Discrimination Act. We'll talk to James Ashby about that in a moment. But now back to Victorian politics. The state election's just 4 months away. And if the leadership changes inside Labor, well, what does that mean for the Liberal opposition, who've been busy building its case as the state's alternative government? The woman in the hot seat, opposition leader Jess Wilson, joins me now from State Parliament. OK, Jess, what's your reaction to the turbulence of today? Does it matter who you face in November?
Well, good to be with you, Peter. It doesn't matter who the leader of the Labor Party is, because it is the same corrupt government, the same record levels of crime, the same crippling debt, the cost of living crisis, the same potholes. Whether it's Jacinta Allan or Ben Carroll, Victorians don't need another unelected Labor Premier. They need a fresh start, a new government, and a government that has a plan to deliver for Victorians. And that's exactly what me and my team have. We have a plan to fix Victoria and to ensure we give it the fresh start it deserves.
I'll get to your plan in a moment, because there's something very interesting that you're doing on energy. I know where Victorians are focused on cost of living. I have to get your reaction, though, to a story that's broken this afternoon, front page of The Age, that suggests the Premier's own senior advisors tried to warn her in writing in 2023 that the big build, and she was running it, she was the minister at the time, was being taken over by bikies and the CFMEU. So this is where the $15 billion of wasted taxpayer money comes from. And of course, if the reports are right, tonight, she knew.
Well, she knew far earlier than what she has claimed to have known as well. She's always claimed that she first became aware of these allegations of corrupt behaviour, of criminality on government big build sites after The Age broke this story in 2024. But what these new revelations show, that she knew far earlier than that, Peter. This is a Premier who has been complicit in the largest corruption scandal in this state's history. And as you said, $15 billion at a minimum of Victorian taxpayer money has gone from government work sites into the pockets of criminals. And Jacinta Allan has refused to take any responsibility or any action to ensure it never happens again. Only a Liberal and Nationals government will call a royal commission into the largest corruption scandal in this state's history to ensure that we stamp out that corruption, we track down every single cent, and we ensure it never happens again.
Talk to me about the no confidence motion you're set to table tomorrow in the chamber. Any chance that will get up and we can have an early election in Victoria? Because we're basically in a campaign as it stands, and Victorian voters are desperate to have their say.
Well, they are desperate, and I think Victorians would love the opportunity to bring the election forward. We're moving a motion of no confidence in the Labor government tomorrow because this government, it is morally bankrupt. It no longer has the right to govern on behalf of Victorians. Whether it's the $15 billion of corruption, the record levels of crime, Victorians who don't feel safe in their homes, in their streets, the crippling debt, the waste. At the moment, we've got the Commonwealth Games underway in Glasgow at the cost of the Victorian taxpayer, or the fact that our roads are littered with potholes. This government has lost the right to govern on behalf of Victorians, and tomorrow in the Parliament we will move a motion of no confidence in the government. Now, Peter, but when we moved this motion, we understood that we probably didn't have the numbers in the House to see it be successful. But tomorrow morning, I expect we'll see many Labor MPs go into their caucus room and vote against the Premier and say they have no confidence in the Premier, and then come into the Parliament later that afternoon and vote the opposite direction, which just shows how dishonest these MPs are and how these MPs are not ensuring that we do have a fresh start and a true government that is going to deliver for Victorians.
You know, the Premier has been highly stage managed ever since her polls hit those rock bottom lows. I know you've just gone all around the state, all 88 electorates. You've been out there. I know you haven't been stage managed. I've seen some of the stuff on social media. So when you're out amongst real people, are they talking about all this sort of, you know, internal entrails of Spring Street? If they're not, what are they telling you, Jess?
That's right. So I spent the past 36 days visiting every part of Victoria, all of the 88 electorates. And the purpose of this, Peter, was to get out and meet Victorians where they are, in their homes, in their businesses, on their high streets, to actually understand the issues that are affecting them, but also to share our plan and our solutions to fix Victoria. And what they're experiencing, particularly in regional Victoria, are the fact that our roads are simply unsafe. We've got potholes, craters on our highways and roads, which is not only a safety issue, but it's costing Victorians as well. Every time they bust a tyre or bust a rim, it's costing them thousands of dollars. But there is one number on the lips of Victorians, and that's $15 billion. This is cut through, Peter. People are so angry that they've seen this $15 billion taxpayer money go into the pockets of criminals at the expense of our hospitals, our schools, lower taxes in this state. And so I've been out on the ground sharing our plans to not only fix our roads, our $5 billion investment to fix and repair our roads, eliminating 1 million potholes, but also to make sure that we reduce crime, that we lower costs and we lower taxes. We have the solutions to fix Victoria. We cannot do it overnight. It is going to take time, but my team has the plan, we have the solutions, and we can work with Victorians to give Victoria the fresh start it needs.
Okay, before we go, you're holding up the plan there. I have been critical of Liberal oppositions in Victoria in the past that have treated fossil fuels, particularly gas, like it's kryptonite. You've got a plan out there that says you want more secure energy and you want that energy to be affordable and reliable. Okay, give it to me straight. What does that mean in practice, Jess?
Well, what it means is that gas is absolutely critical to our energy needs here in Victoria, but also to Victoria's economic future. If we're going to have successful businesses and thriving industry here in Victoria, we desperately need more gas. So over recent weeks, we've announced that we intend to throw the door open to gas exploration in this state. But just yesterday, I announced that if we are elected in November and I am Victoria's next Premier, we will put in place an energy security requirement. This will ensure that we fill the looming shortfalls with the closure of Yallourn and other power stations in coming years, and we look to fill that gap through contracting more gas for the state, potentially more batteries, but certainly more gas to ensure that we fix those shortfalls and we bring down energy prices for both households and businesses.
You're not convincing me on the batteries, Jess. I'll leave that there, but hallelujah on the gas. Thank you for joining me tonight. I know you're busy at Spring Street as well. Thank you very much. All right, coming up, the response from One Nation after Pauline Hanson's bid to overturn a racial discrimination ruling was thrown out of court today, plus the rogue political campaign disguised as a Medicare mail-out. This could be duping you. That's next. Welcome back. A loss today for Pauline Hanson in her bid to overturn that landmark ruling that she'd racially vilify Green Senator Mehreen Faruqi when she told her political rival, excuse my language here, to piss off back to Pakistan. So what does this mean for the One Nation leader? Well, here to discuss this and more, former Liberal MP Nicole Flint and her Chief of Staff, One Nation Chief of Staff James Ashby. Well, James, we're not going to get into the legal detail of issue right or issue wrong in the court of public opinion, but certainly in the eyes of the court and the Racial Discrimination Act, she lost her appeal in the federal court. All you've got left now is the High Court. Are you going to take it further?
Well, Peter, I received a phone call today from a former federal court judge who said the outcome of today's decision, it was intellectually dishonest and lazy. And so I struggle to disagree. We're not happy with the decision. We have to respect it. As it stands, there were 3 judges that made this decision. They were all unanimous in the way in which they handed this decision down. But it goes without saying there is grounds there for an appeal, or sorry, not an appeal, but to take this now to the High Court. Whether they will accept that, well, we'll find out in 6 months' time. But we've got a limited amount of time to do it. And again, it just costs so much money. This is lawfare at its worst, and it always comes from the Greens. You're finding an increasing number of people just want to use our laws against us to shut us up under 18C.
And I will remind people too, Tony Abbott took it to the election, Nicole Flint, you'll remember this, in 2013, that the coalition would fix 18C, that they would repair what we all know are issues with the Racial Discrimination Act. And that was what he was elected to do. And then when the legislation went to his party room, all the wets like Craig Lawney and others who'd just been elected on that promise refused to back the legislation. But this has got to be back on the table, surely, for the coalition.
Well, I hope so, Peter. And there is a fine line here. Obviously, I've been very outspoken over the years about the vile abuse that women in public life are subjected to. I'm one of those women that's had to put up with it. But the matter that has just been before the court is on such a low end of offence. I am astounded that this decision was upheld. Now, that's a matter for the courts, obviously, and I hope that One Nation do keep pursuing it. Although I hear, James, what an horrific waste of money to have to throw towards a court case. So yes, we do need to see reform. However, we also need to do things like protect women, but protect our Jewish community. And what infuriates me more than anything is that were it our Jewish community, or were it a woman like me or any other conservative woman like you, Peter, there is no way that we would see this sort of decision from judges. Every single time I've ever challenged anything, it has been dismissed instantly because we are on the wrong side of politics.
But I also think it's important for people to understand it's just one thing. You need to be offended or insulted to end up in the same case as Pauline Hanson. And we're staring down the barrel now at in excess of 1.6, maybe close to $2 million worth of costs already. That's how easy it is. Insult
I will make the point,
somebody.
though, we're all on the right side. We're all on the right side of the ordinary common sense Australian person who looks at this and shakes their head. I know your boss is fronting Paul Murray tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. Don't miss that, everyone at home. But it was almost like she was in the room at the Labor conference on the weekend, James. I mean, they're completely spooked by her. They even wheeled out their campaign boss, Paul Erickson. He never does media, but he was out there with my colleague Andrew Clennell. Have a listen.
As the polls show, the coalition will not be able to govern without One Nation. One Nation would not be able to govern without the coalition. So at the next election, the choice will be between a Labor government that's delivering real change or an alternative of a chaotic and divided coalition One Nation government.
Now, he does sound robotic, as someone just said in my ear. I agree with that, but he is smart, he is shrewd, he's a good strategist, but you've got him on the ropes there, James.
Well, that's not what his Labor colleagues have said. You know, he's worked for previous ministers there in Canberra and they've said he's very lazy. He's run 2 campaigns in the past, one against Scott Morrison, one against Peter Dutton. Now, he's been fortunate enough to win those, but they weren't his strategies, by the way. He likes to use a lot of these third-party organisations to bring him results and bring him slogans. So, you know, we can all do that. But is he that shrewd? Is he that smart? I think he's desperate. And the mere fact that he did that interview over the weekend with your colleague shows to me we've fleshed him out a little bit. We know what his lines are going to be. As robotic as they were, we now know what they are, so we can actually use that to our advantage moving forward. So let's see how good he goes at this next election. I don't think there'll be the appetite for Australians to vote for this Labor lying government. It's lie after lie. I could keep that Fire the Liar campaign going for the next 12 months and probably raise another 15 mil at the rate this government's going. They haven't learnt the lesson. Stop lying to the Australian people. Instead, they just keep the habit up. Paul Erickson, you've got a tough job ahead of you, and I tell you what, you haven't faced One Nation. You're like mongrels towards the coalition. You haven't seen how we fight in the trenches when it comes to this next campaign.
Nick, you and I have got a long history trying to stop the coalition doing something as stupid as putting in quotas for female politicians, right? And we get the lectures from the left, that quotas being you're serious about women. Well, Joan Kirner was installed, Carmen Lawrence was installed, Julia Gillard was installed, of course Jacinta Allen, she was installed. They look like they might roll her tomorrow. What's the point of having a quota if you roll your women anyway?
Well, I think the point of Labor having the quotas is that they're not necessarily appointing the best person for the job, and that installing women, as is often the case, into leadership positions without them having won that position through their own work ethic and also platform is doomed for failure. And that's what we're about to see again. And I can't wait. And go Jess Wilson. Brilliant interview from her tonight, Peter.
Thank you to you both. I'll leave it there. I just want to show people something that was sent to me by a viewer. Have a look at this. Medicare branding used on what is political mail. Now, you'll open it thinking it's something about Medicare. It's not. It's the comms allowance, your money that a senator is using to mail out Labor propaganda. I'd also like to say, have you noticed my new backdrop? Look at this over here, the flag. I want you to fly the flag at home, but I can't say that without putting my money where my mouth is. So thank you to the wonderful team at Sky News who put the flag on the backdrop for all of us to defend and honour every night that you watch me. Well, that's it, News 24. Very happy to be here under a new banner. I'll see you tomorrow night. Here's Andrew.